Hi guys, Ashley here. Today I'm bringing you Elaine An from Kaiser Innovation, and we're going to talk about all things Chinese consumers post-coronavirus and of course innovating and changing your product specifically for the China market. Elaine, it's phenomenal to have you on the show.
Thank you, Ashley. Thanks for inviting.
Elaine, you are working with essentially international brands that are hardware, software, businesses entering China, and very often you are helping them to adjust their product offering for this market. So you must know
Yes.
Chinese consumers quite well. That's your expertise. Um, right now with this coronavirus, a lot of things changed for a lot of people in China. So can you just briefly walk us through the main changes and how do you see them for different industries?
Yes, I think I think globally, everybody has been stuck at home for a few months, right? But China started earlier, so they actually rebounded earlier. So from what I know, the e-commerce sales has gone up like 4.5%, like 4 billion yuan is is what has changed, right? Because everybody's forced at home, and then even the people who were not used to buying online, like the more older people, elderlies, were forced to do that, right? So yeah, so interestingly, we see a few areas like definitely hygiene, right? Because people are much more concerned about that and how their rituals and how they clean themselves. So that's one area, and interestingly, even for exercise, right? Yeah, so people, we've seen people like have those different smaller exercise equipments at home because they need to stay in shape, right? And we heard even rollerblades are selling well because the parents are so eager for their kids to get into movement right after COVID. Um, and also definitely food as well. We see a lot of people doing bakery, Western bakery, which has been a trend. And so people actually make a lot of food at home. And even what would be interesting for Western companies to also look into is the Chinese concept, the Chinese diet of food therapy, right? Because of the coronavirus, people eat more ginger, onions, and like into their daily Chinese food making, right? So we've seen quite interesting stuff going on, and some more pertaining to the Chinese lifestyle, especially food and how people perceive beauty is different, right? Because Asians, especially Chinese, they want to look more white, whereas our European friends, they actually want to look darker, right? So I think the cultural aspect of the Chinese culture really impacts how products should be developed. Yeah, and whether it's hardware or software or yeah, services.
And right now, which industries do you feel are most affected by this change in consumer behavior? So you've already mentioned a couple of consumer groups, like younger consumer group, for instance, yeah, older consumer group that just now go and basically digitalize. People are very concerned about safety, and basically safety, security, and food quality, etc., are very, very important. At the same time, consumption, we all know, is going kind of down in lower tier cities, starting from third, fourth, fifth tier city, because people start feeling that I better save for that horrible day when it comes.
I definitely think retail is gonna be hit hard. I mean, even globally, right? Yeah, but China has a upside where because e-commerce has been pretty advanced. Uh, Even delivery, it's like within like that afternoon or like within 24 hours, right? And the mobile commerce is in some ways even more advanced than other countries because everybody uses like WeChat Pay, Alipay, and it's an instant, right? So I think especially for like so for hardware, it would be everyday like basic consumption stuff that would be people would even buy more online, and we've also seen that people buy in groups, group buys. Like even within people who live, like the neighbors, right? You know, in China, they have certain neighborhoods where there are thousands of people who live in one neighborhood, like in high-story buildings, right? Not houses, because China, it's, if you live in a house in a villa, you're super well off. But in
or
most
you are
cases,
in the village.
yes, yeah. So in like middle class or mass affluent people, they usually live in apartment buildings, right? So we've seen people who buy fridges along with their neighbors in bulk. So they'll go to other friends' places and say, "Oh, you have a really nice fridge. Why don't we all buy it together?" Right? Which is a very Chinese thing to do, right? So I think certain industries, especially food consumption, FMCG things, where you put on your skin, because people are very concerned about food safety, and anything you put on your skin, or for babies and kids, people are concerned about the quality. So I think Western companies have an advantage in those areas, and also more high-tech stuff. High-tech as in, let's say, medical, or those type of product categories.
Mm-hmm. You just now said a very interesting thing. You said buying in bulk is a very Chinese thing. So tell us, what other Chinese things are there when it comes to purchasing products in a variety of industries?
Oh, well, we can talk about a few cases. So for example, one time we were commissioned to do a project that's related to fridges, okay? So we actually went to a lot of homes, opened a lot of fridges. And so the way products are designed is designed according to how people live, right? People's lifestyles. So for example, in the West, in US, for example, people love drinking icy water. So in the door of the fridge, there's usually an ice dispenser, right? When you come to China, it's almost the reverse. Okay, so you see people, even if young people like to drink cold stuff, their parents would stop them, like, you're not supposed to drink cold stuff. It's because it's bad for your stomach and bad for your system. So that feature might probably not work over here, right? And also, if you look at the fridge, it's interesting to peek in the Chinese fridges, right? We've seen people, and a recurring pattern of people having 60 eggs in the fridge. 60, okay? And then what we do is we actually bring our clients into people's homes in China. This was before COVID. Now we can do it remotely. But when you ask people, why do they have 60 eggs in the fridge? They'll be like, well, first, because sometimes they want to buy organic stuff. So they go to the suburban areas, the farms, to buy 农家菜, right? Like,
yeah.
Those organic eggs, and they are smaller. And then if they go, especially to purchase that, they buy in bulk. And also, there's also like the Walmarts and Carrefours in China where people buy stacks of eggs, and that's because actually Chinese consume a lot of eggs. In the morning and like afternoon and night. So if it's the family, like 3 people family, or even sometimes the mother-in-law, father-in-law, the parents and the kid, that's 7 people at home, right? And they eat a lot of eggs. So if you think about it, when the fridge is designed for there's usually a carton of 12 eggs in the fridge. It's not enough. So people put it in the drawer, and it's not designed for that, right? So it really can help you rethink how, based on the lifestyle in China, how you can redesign the product. Yeah. And here's another example. If you watch how Chinese people cook, a lot of moms take out, like after they buy some frozen meat, they cut it into chunks like the fist, right? They wrap it up in plastic bags and they'll put it in the freezer. One night before they want to cook that dish, they'll take it out and put it in the sink, right? So with that insight of observation, you can know that actually the way Chinese people eat meat is not steaks, right? It's like they slice it, and then they cook it with vegetables, right? So they need to defrost it. So there needs to be a section in the fridge where it's 0 degrees, where it keeps the meat cool enough, but not freaking frozen.
Yeah.
And not too warm so that it has bacteria, right? So a lot of these insights into how Chinese people live can totally reform or even discover new opportunities in the market.
What are some of your favorite examples of how, based on this very different lifestyle, the products were actually redesigned? So it's okay, there's an insight about, let's say, 60 eggs in the fridge, but was the fridge really redesigned to have a lot more those containers? What are some of your favorite examples from some of your clients, or maybe from the industry?
Okay, for example, vacuum cleaners. Okay, in the US, vacuum cleaners are huge and bulky, right? They're also used by the housewife themselves sometimes. So the buyer is the user. Okay, and also in a lot of homes in the US, it's like 3 stories high, it's all carpeted, right? When you go to China, it's hardwood floors, number one. Secondly, if people have the money, they hire a maid, a domestic helper, to be politically correct, but and it's not that expensive to hire a domestic helper in China, right? Actually, it might even be cheaper than the vacuum cleaner. The vacuum cleaner, which is like a few hundred US dollars. Plus, women in China are like, what, 100 pounds, So the whole ergonomic of the design, plus who is the user, is in question, right? Is it the housewife? Is it the maid? Plus, is it hardwood floors? And then if it's supposed to be designed for the domestic helper, like some maids in China, they probably just came from the suburbs. So they're used to using floor mops, like extremely cheap floor mops, right? And then if you have a machine that's like a few hundred US dollars and there's like instruction booklets in English and all that, I mean, it just flies through the head of how to even use it, right? So we've seen some of our clients have successfully developed like a combo vacuum plus floor wash at the same time, and it has done really successfully in the China market. And it's much smaller. It's like a stick vacuum instead of these bulky machines. So that's one of the.
And what are some of your best cases, I would say, when it comes to the nightmares in China, when somebody brought a product and lodged it in the market without probably proper research or strategy, and then this product really did not do well? Who basically messed it up?
Well, interestingly, sometimes I find that it's if you're not immersed in the culture, you don't know what you don't know. You don't even know how to ask the question, right? So, for example, one of our clients is in retail security. So, for example, if you go into a Walmart, there are these panels, right? So if you walk past and you've stole something, it will beep, right? So we actually went to study and find out like how people steal in stores, right?
Now we are interested.
So we talked to salespeople, we talked to different people in the companies, and then we find out that actually sometimes the people are, because the product that was designed in the West was to prevent people from externally stealing from the company, right? But we found that some of the cases is actually internal theft. It's actually internal theft. Yeah. And then there are so many ways to steal. It's really interesting. For example, people will steal milk powder, and some of the women will wear a big jacket or coat, and then they'll put the milk powder between their legs, like hiding it under the coat, and they'll walk out like a pregnant person. So So we discover very interesting. So it actually helps the company see how their product in the different contexts changes everything. So it's in some of their China clients, instead of buying a really expensive machine, they'll be like, we'll just throw 20 people to look at the floor, like to monitor, right? So we've seen again and again that price point sometimes is an issue. Some of the price points are 8 times more, right? Like the Western product is 8 times more than the local competition. So really doing your homework first in the market would really benefit, because it's not developing a product based on a lot of assumptions that are not from the Chinese market. Yeah, but the Chinese market is big enough. It's a $1 trillion market, right? That is probably worth you doing that. And the e-commerce scene is so developed that if you make it, like one of our friend Josh Gardner says, if you make it through the moat, it's like going through the moat to the castle, right? Then sales will take off. Yeah, but you need to do your work really well.
The price is big at the end. What are the steps, the main 3, 5, 8 steps that you think everybody introducing a new product in China absolutely must do?
Okay, first, question your assumptions. Yeah, because it's a totally different culture, number one, totally different language, right? Apart from English, right? And in terms of culture, it's a collective society instead of individualist culture. Yeah, and also there are hierarchies between relationships. Yeah, sometimes even if you ask the wife, like the wife has to ask the husband, and even if you do B2B projects, you ask a colleague, you have to ask the boss, right? So the whole dynamic changes. For example, if we've done hospital projects as well. And so in the West, like, because it's individual, so you can approach nurses or doctors independently as an individual person. But because of the social hierarchy in China, you have to get from the top down to the bottom. You can't go bottom up. Otherwise, they're afraid to talk to you. You know, they might not have gotten permission from their senior people. Yeah. So I would say, yeah, the language, the culture. Of course, we can also do very fast surveys now. With WeChat survey, it has a 24-hour turnaround time to many cities in China, because everyone is on WeChat now. We can do what we call remote research. It's something that we've kind of evolved out of this COVID situation, where we can now help companies do remote research where you don't have to even fly over. We help you do the research remotely. And the way we do it is, number one, we can remotely interview end users through our networks. We recruit people through our networks. So you can be on Zoom. We can get them onto a Zoom call. We'll have translators live, right? That's one, but that's only what they say, right? But how do you see like what their home looks like? The way we do that is we do what we call remote digital diaries. Well, everybody has a mobile phone nowadays, right? So we'll give them a piece of little homework. Let's say for a week, they can document what they do. Let's say how do they clean their house, right? How do they clean the kitchen? How do they clean the living room? So these are open-ended questions for us to discover what's different. And also, we can also ask them to record how they buy on the phone. For example, many people in China uses like live streaming to buy, right? Live stream meaning like there'll be a internet celebrity like showing what they wear and, you know, like 9 hours straight. And then the viewer would just like kind of buy on the mobile phone immediately already, okay? So we can ask them to record the whole process and we can send it to you. Of course, there'll be NDAs and all that. We can also record like what they see on their Xiaohongshu, like Little Red Book, or with their permission, of course. So you can remotely already understand how they do this, and our team will have translation, or we can debrief you over the phone or on Zoom or Google Meet, whatever you
Just
prefer.
now you mentioned WeChat surveys, and you've said that 24-hour turnaround, and this is a very quick and very cheap survey tool, but it does have a lot of problems as well, because you never know who are the people answering. The people are compensated to answer, right? And sometimes, I mean, even in my office, we've got some people on the weekend have nothing to do, so they have very high-end profile, and they constantly get those requests. So they say, oh, 20 RMB, we're going to pay you 20 RMB for this survey, and then just go and do it. But they don't have heart in it. So the way they answer questions and the way they behave is very, very different. So the quality of data that you're collecting is, is probably not the highest. How can businesses actually get the real insight in China, based on the fact that also in China there are so many different consumer groups, right? And just bulking somebody by, okay, she's 25 years old and she lives in Shanghai does not really add so much value.
Yes. So when we do research for these innovation insights for products and services, we use mixed methods. So one is qualitative research, where we actually go and talk to the users. Before COVID, we actually even fly to their homes, right? Our clients actually fly over, like all the way from the US to spend a week, and we arrange for them to go into Chinese people's homes. Of course, now we're in a different situation, but we can still have them, remotely show us, what their home is like with their mobile phone, right? So we'll be the middle people to make sure that they are saying the truth, and then we're answering our clients' questions. And so in terms of the survey, you're right. Sometimes it might not be 100% accurate, but that's why we have the qualitative and quantitative at the same time. The qualitative answers the question why. Usually surveys, it's more quantitative, where you can only ask survey questions when it has already happened in the past. Meaning, for example, how many kids you have at home, or how much have you bought for this computer, right? Is in the past. But for future probing questions, we have to do the qualitative research. Yeah. Where we can guide the client on how we can ask it properly, and also one particular thing is the way we recruit is kind of different. When I was working in the US, the way these companies get consumer insights is they have a recruitment company, right? So they recruit randomly, and also it's objectively, right? We actually find this way of recruitment is probably not the most effective in China, because the trust fabric is different. Chinese people mostly trust their friends and family. Even if you tell them you're like, Google, Microsoft, whatever big company name, they might not even trust that's true, because there is a lot of scams, right? Yeah. So our most successful research recruits are through our friends and family network. And don't underestimate that because sometimes our clients might think, oh, if it's through friends and family, then it's very limited. And how do you make sure you find the right people? But don't forget, in Chinese society, the networks can be humongous. Like on WeChat, a single group has 500 people, right? So I have hundreds of groups, right? So we recruit through referrals. So it's from a friend of a friend. We might not know that person directly, but we might know somebody who knows them well, who's then they are okay so they perceive you as a friend, and they're okay that you go to their homes. Of course, we need to sometimes balance the relationship a little bit, so they don't feel like they're a subject matter of the relationship. Yeah.
What is your perception right now? We are in the middle of the year. It's June. What's your perception when it comes to the remainder of the year? Consumer sentiment, is it going to be improving? Is it going to go down? Is China still going to be consuming, internally, and also all these international brands? Where do you see this basically year still going for China when it comes to consumer spending?
Well, I think it's maybe just a shift of categories, like people's priorities shift, right? I mean, you still have to eat, right? There are certain things you still have to eat, and we've even heard that some categories has been booming, like printers, like kids are at home schooling, they need to print out their homeworks, right? So I don't think it's all down. It's shift in priorities and categories to more basic stuff that people need, but maybe luxury would not do that well because people are not going out and meeting people. Like, they don't have to show off the brand. So it's going to be a shift in product categories. And I think e-commerce is still going strong in China because, first of all, it's so convenient. And we've seen users, they tell us they have to buy something every single day. It's become an addiction for some people to get something from Taobao, Tmall, or Jingdong every single day. So shift in priorities. So I think for some industries, it might be very good news. For our clients who are in the hygiene category, it's actually booming right now. Yeah. But for certain categories like travel, maybe not. Then maybe they need to shift their strategy and see how they can take advantage of the market needs.
And right now, I think what we also cannot underestimate is the fact that the situation changes very quickly. For instance, just 2 weeks ago, everything was very, very happy. And you just now mentioned, tourism industry. And in China, the whole domestic tourism was coming back and people were booking their hotels and their stays. And they were basically very excited to get out of home and, travel domestically by car, etc., etc. And then Beijing happened. And Beijing cluster was announced, and that literally brought the sentiment and the this confidence in the brighter future for 2020 and tourism down in just one big slash. Right. So, and these are not even people living in Beijing. These were people all across China, from Shandong, friends from Guangdong, friends from Shanghai. They just really felt that, okay, nothing is contained. There's no confidence. It could come back anytime. I really need to be very careful. I don't want to travel. And in fact, I don't want to go out because I just feel so down. So I believe that we also need to stay connected with the fact that this year is very special. And while China is always working very, very fast and moving very fast, this particular time is specifically sensitive, is extremely sensitive, and things can change very, very quickly. What's your take on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think businesses that operate in China has to be agile. It's almost like you need to be a startup, right? You need to be sensitive to market changes because any policy changes overnight. So, but
look at the street vendors right now. It's amazing. I absolutely love it.
Yes. So I think because there's a billion people, so there's still going to be needs. It's just a matter of, are you able to address those needs and pain points, right? Effectively. And I think certain areas like food, because there is concern about food safety and quality, those sectors are always going to be around, right? Yeah, especially for the kids, right? For the previously one child, now two child, but most people are not wanting to have more children. So it's still, 7 adults looking after one kid. And so those are where the opportunities are.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Elaine. It was very interesting. So we've learned how to make sure that your product actually fits the China market, that we cannot just bring it as is and change the marketing angle on it, but very often we also need to redesign the product and adjust it, be it a software or a hardware. Guys, connect with Elaine. She's on LinkedIn as well. Her company is called Kaiser Innovation. It was again phenomenal to have you on the show. And of course, guys, stay tuned for more China experts to come to talk about China, Chinese consumers, and the new retail.